Hi folks, and welcome to the Financial Argument. In my previous video, I discussed why the impending food shortage of 2022 is by design and not a result of natural causes. I explained how the first signs of this food shortage won't necessarily be empty grocery shelves, but high price increases you'll see well before that occurs. These historic price increases will not only affect access to food, but take a toll on everyday living. Only a select few will have access to some products until eventually the shelves will be completely empty. Most will unfortunately return home empty-handed. The situation will be dire for those who don't have gardens where they can grow their own food or have enough water and food stockpiled for the future. I want to discuss some of the issues accelerating this crisis and why they will cause irreversible damage. When you realize how complex this problem is and that there's no way to come back from it, perhaps some of you will begin taking preparations more seriously while you still have time. In a normally functioning supply chain, containers are loaded, shipped, unloaded, and reloaded in a continuous cycle at the ports. However, what we've experienced in recent years has caused this cycle to break down. Yes, we are in a shipping crisis, and 2022 is not looking promising at all. It appears things are only going to get worse at the ports. According to the Drewry World Container Index, the average price of a shipping container is still incredibly high. Although prices last September were a whopping $10,000 or more per container, they've lowered since then. However, as of December 9, 2021, we're still seeing a 170% increase compared to December of 2020. Some container prices are even higher, especially those leaving Asian ports. In a survey carried out by Container Exchange, 54% of respondents in the industry said they expect the problems to remain on the same level, with 11% of respondents believing that 2022 will be worse. The latest news from inside the shipping industry clearly shows that there is no hope. Also, the upcoming months will show us there is another issue that'll make the situation worse. We know that China is still the center of global manufacturing. Yes, that means cheaper products for everyone around the world, but the slightest disruption in China means heavy consequences for the entire global economy and supply chain. Closures made due to the decisions taken by the Chinese government as a result of the health crisis affect everything from production to logistics. The first factor to take into account is the Chinese New Year. There's an incredible amount of shipments preparing to be put out before the Chinese New Year holiday begins. The second factor is that China is gearing up to host the Winter Olympics next month, and they will also host a number of political events later in the year. We're likely to see more cases of infected people, so closures in China are very likely. The damage to already slowing economies will be painful. The Chinese city of Xi'an, which produces 15% of the world's flash memory chips, shut down in December because of an increase in infections. This halt in production places companies like Samsung, who rely on this city for 40% of their supply, in a difficult situation. Aside from the increased prices of semiconductors alarming companies and causing serious chip shortages, container shortages are causing a serious bottleneck in the global supply chain, and it'll only get worse from here. Price hikes and product shortages are everywhere. Let me just give one example I can share out of many. This week, Nestle's head of corporate communications, Cindy Jones-Gordon, said in a statement that the company had to make price increases as a result of the increased shipping costs, supply chain costs, and raw and packaging material costs. If you didn't know already, Nestle is the parent company of over 2,000 brands distributed around the world, distributing products like Purina Pet Foods, Carnation, Maggi, Gerber, Coffee Mate, and many, many more. Recent data shows the inventory sales ratio in the U.S. is at record lows. When stores are out of stock on certain items and have to replenish their stock, if they're even able to, they'll put the new stock out at higher prices due to increased demand. This means emptier shelves with products at prices only a small population can even access. The rest will just have to do without. If small businesses continue to have difficulty accessing products, it could spell trouble for them as well. We may soon see the closure of many small retail businesses. Some believe increasing the number of shipping vessels on the waters will help increase the shipping crisis. However, the process of building a ship and delivering it takes 3 years, so the problem wouldn't be alleviated anytime soon. If we put aside the increase in raw material prices, we're still grappling with the decreased workforce and production capacity, as well as the logistics problems caused by ships stuck in ports. What I've told you so far about the state of the first link of the supply chain as we enter 2022 is gloomy enough. When the government wakes up and accepts the severity of the supply chain crisis and finally takes measures to solve it, they'll likely announce billions of dollars worth of projects. However, their efforts will be in vain. Because it's too late now. As I've said before, someone has detected a weakness in our supply chain. It's been infiltrated, manipulated, and is being used as a weapon against us. And it's not something that's been going on for just the past few years. The story goes way back. It started with the weakening of domestic production, thereby creating a manufacturing giant and designing a society that's become addicted to the cheap products of that giant. This is not the problem of just the United States, but the rest of humanity has become dependent on these products, so most of humanity is in the same boat. And the plan won't just end with permanent damage to the supply chain. With a weak and fragile economy, stock market bubbles, inflated real estate, and other markets bursting, the operation to turn your currency into a worthless piece of paper will begin. I'm not just pulling this out of thin air, although some of you watching may consider this conspiracy theory or fear-mongering. Anyone who looks at history can see this very clearly. The era of the US dollar as the world's reserve currency is coming to an end. I've covered these issues in detail in my currency reset videos. If you would like to access the content I create for Patreon and be one of these great people you see on the screen who are keeping the financial argument alive, you can visit my Patreon page. My YouTube videos are accessible there as well. Unfortunately, the officials who've been trying to draw attention to the supply chain crisis are obviously not being heard, or we wouldn't be in the midst of a crisis. At this point, there's not much to do except take charge of our own individual preparations. Now, let's look at another scenario. Although I doubt it would ever happen, suppose someone waves a magic wand and the government comes up with a solution for the crisis in the ports. And let's say their plan actually works within a few months and the shipping crisis is solved. We're still faced with a truck driver shortage, which is the second link in the supply chain. We know products loaded onto containers aren't going to reach stores by teleporting themselves or walking now, are they? Truck drivers ensure that 71% of goods in the American economy are delivered to stores. Despite this, what no one talks about much is the current truck driver shortage. Even if we solve the supply chain issues and import an abundance of products from all over the world, the shelves will still remain empty without truck drivers to deliver them to stores. According to one of the major trucking companies, US Express, the industry is short 80,000 workers. The American Trucking Association expects this number to increase to 160,000 by 2030. There are many causes behind the trucking shortage, including a history of high turnover rates and the health crisis, which saw the trucking industry lose 6% of workers. Although long-haul truck drivers can typically earn between $50,000 and $70,000 a year, with some earning more, it's a stressful lifestyle, and the industry experiences a high turnover rate. Life on the road, away from family, eating out for meals, and sleeping in a truck or motel can take a toll. Not to mention the cost of maintaining a rig for owner-operators. Fewer truckers means emptier shelves. So what naturally follows is prices that continue to rise unabated, increasing prices and inflation naturally follow. If we take a look at the situation in the midst of this dark winter, things seem to be taking a turn for the worse. Record-high price increases, empty supermarket shelves, and extreme shortages across the country abound. While all shortages and price hikes can affect our living standards, the one that will hurt humanity the most, which I continue to warn you about, is food shortage. Hunger will bring greater devastation than anything else, which is why I continuously cover this topic and remind you to take this matter seriously. I cannot stress this enough. Be prepared. Until next time, God bless you all.